You're listening to Thursday Night AMP on the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
It's the Thursday Night AngryMarks.com Pro Wrestling and Mixed Martial Arts Podcast, also known as AMP. My name is Stevie J, and my co-host, as always, before we go to our special guest, is the one and only Jordan J. Garber.
How is everybody doing tonight? Everyone listening online via their computers or via their smartphones? And to everyone listening around the world, what is up? Welcome to Thursday Night AMP. Tonight we have a very special guest. This guy wrestles in the California region. This is Kimo. How are you doing tonight, Kimo?
Good. How are you doing?
I am doing pretty good. I cannot complain. It's just really cold outside, so that's one downside. But besides that, I am doing pretty good. Let's get right to it. I'll ask a few questions. CBJ will ask a few questions. How did you get started in professional wrestling? How did you realize that you wanted to become a professional wrestler?
Well, like everybody else who's gotten into it, I grew up watching it down all my life, and then when I got old enough, I figured, hey, why don't I find a wrestling school and give it a try? And, I mean, my journey's been pretty long. First I started, I would say, training originally when I was 21 at Big Time Wrestling Academy. But at that time, I was not into wrestling. I didn't last too long just because I had other priorities. And then a couple of years later, I found Pro Wrestling Iron, their Ketsu Academy, which I ended up training at until they ended up shutting down shop. And Pro Wrestling Iron was founded by Michael Modest, Donovan Morgan, the two of the originals at All Pro Wrestling before they ventured off to their own wrestling school. And once they, shut down, I went back to Big Time Wrestling just because I was familiar with the head trainer, Jason Styles, there.
How did you come up with the whole Kimo gimmick? How did that whole gimmick come about?
Well, I had no direction of what I wanted to do with my character. So I actually sat down with my brother, who is also a huge wrestling fan, and then we just kind of said, you know what, think of something Hawaiian, because God forbid I just have been Filipino, Kimo or Steve, whatever at the time. So we conceived the idea of a Hawaiian character, and I figured Kimo, because it just sounded like a strong Hawaiian name, based on the UFC fighter Kimo. So that's pretty much where that came from.
Awesome stuff. Let's see if you ask a few questions. I asked the basic first few questions regarding training and all of that. And let's see if you ask you a few questions, and we'll be back to Jordan Garber for some more questions. Back to you, Stevie. Okay.
Well, the first thing I want to ask Kimo is, why does he enjoy kicking people in the face and finger painting mythical creatures?
Oh, shit. Can you repeat the question one more time? Sorry.
Yeah, your Twitter profile says you enjoy kicking people in the face and finger painting mythical creatures. So I figure there's got to be a story behind that.
Well, I don't know. Just kicking people in the face seems fun to me. I welcome people that kick me in the face as well, which happens quite a bit. But I don't know. There's something fun about leaving a boot print on somebody's forehead. And the painting mythical creatures. That, it's like art. I like to draw. Can't draw lake to save my life, but I try hard.
So you're not Rob Schamberger, then? You're not painting stuff that's going to be seen on WWE Shop?
Oh, not at all. I don't have that kind of talent. He's got way more talent than I could even dream of having art-wise.
Oh, well, keep working at it. You might get there one of these days. You never know. And my next question is that, judging by what I can see of your career retrospective, looking up your opponents and matches online, it looks like you've worked with a lot of the best guys in the business. I can see Frankie Kazarian and Brian Cage, who's really big right now in Lucha Underground, and Drake Younger, who's been a champion in multiple places and been on our show before. Right. So who's your favorite opponent out of all the guys you've worked with so far?
I would say my favorite opponent that I've worked with would be Rock Legend Scum, Adam Thornstowe. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the Reno Scum, but they're pretty big on the California indie scene, pretty much the West Coast. They do. Yeah. He would be one of my favorites to have ever been in the ring with, just because he's so smooth and I think we have great chemistry. He flows really well with me. So off the top, that would be my favorite guy to work with. I also would say I'll throw Shelton Benjamin on that list. That guy, he's good. It was amazing working with him.
Yeah, it looks like you worked with him at the WrestleFest in Newark, California a couple of years ago. So I'm guessing by the name WrestleFest, that was a pretty big show.
Yeah, it's a convention show that Big Time Wrestling holds every year. So during the day, we have a huge convention with different superstar wrestlers, and then in the evening, we have a wrestling show that most of the people that do the autograph session are a part of.
Very cool. So that's every year at the same time then? Is it always in October every year?
It's usually October or May, depending on what's going on. I'm thinking this year will probably be October just because later, late March, we have WrestleMania, and I think everyone's just going to be ruffled out after that point in California. So,
yeah, speaking of which, that was actually going to be my next question, being that you're a California guy. I'm sure you're pretty excited about WrestleMania coming to San Jose.
oh, definitely. It's just 5 minutes from where I grew up. I mean, as soon as the tickets went on sale, I got them. It'll be my first WrestleMania to attend, so I'm excited.
Are you going to get a chance to work that weekend as well? Are you booked on any of the shows going on that weekend?
Unofficially, yeah, I'll be around. I'm gonna say I'll probably be doing something with Ring of Honor and also WrestleCon.
Very cool. Well, we'll look.
Yeah, I just haven't publicized that yet just because wait until it got closer. But yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what I'll be doing with them, but I'll be definitely part of the show.
All right, well, you don't have to go into specifics if you're still trying to hammer out those details. We don't want you to put anything on the line and then have to retract it later. I understand that.
Right, yeah, exactly.
All right, well, Jordan,
I don't like to jinx myself.
Yeah, I don't want you to jinx it either, so we'll just leave it at that, and I'll let Jordan ask a few more questions, and I'll jump back in. So, Jordan, over to you.
So, I've been seeing these things, this strong style athlete thing, all over social media, all over Facebook, all over Twitter, and Instagram and all that. What is this whole Strong Style sponsored athlete thing all about?
Strong Style brand is an apparel company that is starting to represent a lot of indie wrestlers. Actually, I would even say some big names because I believe Brodus Clay Tyrus is their first sponsored athlete that they announced. So it's basically, they're trying to build their brand again with wrestlers who they feel would be best to suit, helping blow them up. And this, since they're pretty new.
Perfect stuff. So, there's a lot of wrestlers that want to break in the business. I'm actually just speaking specifically for aspiring wrestlers. If you want to break into this business and you want to make a name, not just become a wrestler, but make a name for yourself as a wrestler, what advice do you give to a young person in training?
I advise them to find a very credible wrestling school, know who the trainers are, what they've done wrestling-wise in their careers. That's the big, main important thing, is find a credible school. Second, I would say check your ego at the door. Keep your ears open. Listen to what you're told. Because, you meet people that are athletes or they feel, something makes them more special than they are. And that's always a bad recipe for wrestling. Just open your ears, learn, work hard, pay attention, study old wrestling footage. And I would also say make sure outside of wrestling, your lifestyle, make sure, you're working out, eating right, and not getting into trouble outside. I mean, live as clean as possible. Just because if you're aspiring to go to the WWE, you want a clean record, and you don't want to have a cocky attitude either. You want to present yourself as somebody that is willing to learn, that will absorb like a sponge, and works hard. Two important things, like how well you can absorb information and how hard you work.
So, we look back in all your matches that you've had in your career. What one stands out to you the most? What one is your favorite?
My favorite that stands out the most was probably my match with Shelton Benjamin. Just because everything that we did in the ring, there was nothing talked about before that. We had I would say a 30-second meeting, and then he had to change and get ready. So, I mean, everything that we did in the ring was not planned out. It was just, us talking and flowing together. So, I mean, that's why I would say that would be my favorite, just because it's one of my favorite matches to watch back, and it was a very good learning experience for me.
Awesome. Back to you, Stevie.
All right, well, Kimo, since you said your name was inspired by mixed martial arts, and I've seen a few tweets, and this is the AngryMarks Pro Wrestling and Mixed Martial Arts podcast, looking at your tweets, I've got to think you have an opinion on what happened with Anderson Silva and Nick Diaz both failing their drug test.
Right, yeah. I mean, it's unfortunate for Anderson Silva, just because he's considered the GOAT of, MMA, to have, not one but two different steroids, you know, in your system on your drug test. I mean, that's pretty bad. I mean, considering the circumstance, you know, he wanted to come back from that horrific injury he had. But I mean, now you're on that level where your career is tainted, where they're wondering, you know, did he do it before or didn't he? And then Nick Diaz, that's expected, you know. I mean, he's failed for marijuana before. I mean, I don't even think that's a harsh offense. Like, I believe he's also a medicinal card holder, so I don't know how all that works, but I don't think that's a pretty harsh offense. It's just marijuana. I mean,
well, I was amused when I read your tweet, though, and you said the irony is maybe Anderson Silva should have done coke and he would have gotten a slap on the wrist like John Jones.
Yeah, I mean, that whole issue, I don't understand how the Nevada Athletic Commission doesn't hold that as, you know, a severe punishment as, you know, smoking marijuana. To me, I would say that's worse than cocaine.
I would too, but I've long since given up trying to figure out why illegal drugs are recreational and medicinal marijuana is illegal. It's nonsensical to me. So
it's crazy because marijuana, you know, they get suspended for it, but cocaine you don't. And then to make matters worse, he started himself to rehab for a day. I mean, Jesus Christ! Like the UFC, there's so much going on with the UFC right now. It's pretty crazy. I don't understand all the logistics.
They've had a pretty infamous run in the last couple of months. They've had some really successful pay-per-views and some really high-profile drug test failures. So it is a very interesting time for them. But I will say, in regards to Anderson Silva, he's come out and publicly denied. He's saying that there's something wrong with the testing process. He somehow they tainted it and got it wrong. Do you buy that from Anderson Silva? Do you think he's on the level?
I don't buy it. I just feel tainted cups. That's hard to believe considering when I had to take a drug test for work, they open up a fresh cup in front of you and then you go into the bathroom. So I'm assuming it's maybe even more strict than that. So I can't really say, oh yeah, I don't buy it.
Yeah, I mean, UFC fighters have actually gotten in trouble for mouthing off to the people that test them because they actually stand there in the bathroom stall with you, making sure you're not tainting your sample.
Right, exactly. When I did it for work, I went into a restroom, like small bathroom by myself, but there was a window where they actually watched me pee. So, I mean, I don't buy it.
Well, we'll just have to see how it plays out, but Anderson vows he's going to clear his name, so we'll see.
That's hard to do with these steroids in your system.
Yeah, and one of them is, at least as I understand it, one of them is not something you can take orally. It actually has to be injected into your body. Now, that's pretty hard to get accidentally from a tainted supplement.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know how that could be possible.
All right, well, as long as we're on the subject, there's some matches that have gone down the tubes and some matches that have moved up on future cards. So what do you think of Chris Weidman being out of UFC 184 and Ronda Rousey versus Kat Zingano moving up to the top?
Chris Weidman pulling out, I'm disappointed because that's a fight I wanted to see with Vitor. And moving Ronda Rousey up, to me, overall, that card just does not look impressive, something I would want to spend $60-something on to watch.
Right. So it's one of those proving point pay-per-views for Rousey because everybody always says she's a draw, she sells pay-per-views. Well, she's pretty much the only name value on that pay-per-view, so it's going to prove whether or not she really is a draw. Yeah,
I think it'll still be a decent draw, but, I mean, you're investing money on something that's probably not going to go past the first or second round.
Yeah,
based on, watching her fight.
Yeah, my co-host Frank the other day said that if she goes more than 80 seconds in a fight, that's more than the last two fights combined, so.
Right.
Yeah. But then again, I almost compare it to the Mike Tyson thing back in the day where you'd buy a Tyson fight knowing that it was going to end in a minute because it was Mike Tyson.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think you're buying it just to watch her armbar somebody.
Yeah, you're buying it to see her violently finish somebody, whether it's a submission or a punch or whatever.
Yeah. Personally, I'd let her armbar me.
You're not the first person I've heard say that, Kimo. I think that's a prevailing sentiment among a lot of men out there. So, Jordan, I want you to jump back in. Go ahead with a few more questions.
Well, pretty much I wanted to ask a few basic questions about your career, and I did that. Before I pretty much wrap it up, what is your thoughts on big time wrestling? You know, you're wrestling there, the promotion's growing. It's one of the top independent promotions out there, especially in California. Just tell us your overall thoughts on Big Time Wrestling.
Big Time Wrestling, now going into the future, I think we have a lot of up-and-coming talent that I feel are going to be really, really good. So it's something that you're going to want to pay attention to, because right now we have a lot of new wrestling training, and they're all pretty talented. So I think the future's going to look good. Plus, we have young guys now like Victor Sterling, Takame, Tony Vargas, and Finn. Those guys, they're pretty intense. They work hard, so we have a very good core of guys right now. Plus, I mean, you can always see legends, superstars, freshly released from WWE TNA stars on, regular shows. So, I mean, it's always good to follow and watch what we do. We're always on a good show.
And
going forward,
sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, going forward, I mean, I think it's just going to get better. So keep your eye out on Big Time Wrestling. If you're not aware or familiar with the product, definitely I would follow it.
For sure. And is there any lists of is there a list of upcoming shows that you got? And after that, do you have any plugs you'd like to share with us?
We have our March 20th Super Show. We have Joey Ryan on the show, Frankie Kazarian, Abyss from TNA, and Chris Masters, who's pretty much a regular for us. And that's March 20th in Newark, at Newark Memorial High. And then after that, I'm not sure what other date for Big Time Wrestling. But off the top of my head, that's all I could plug right now for us.
Gotta love Chris Masters and Kazarian. Had the honor and the pleasure to interview both of them and hang out with them a bit in the locker room, and they're totally class acts. So if you're in the California area, get them, say hi, get an autograph. They're always great to talk to, especially Kazarian. Kazarian's a complete class act.
Yeah, Kazarian's a cool guy. He's actually helped me quite a bit in wrestling, and I'm very thankful that he put his name on the line for me a few times.
Awesome, and where can fans follow you on social media?
You can follow me on Twitter at Kimozilla, KIMOZILLA, or you can follow me on Instagram, Stevie_B_rad, and those are the only avenues of social media I really post wrestling stuff.
Awesome stuff, Stevie.
Yeah, just a couple more questions before we wrap it up. I wanted to ask Kimo if he has any aspirations in the future for WWE or TNA, if those are places that he'd want to work.
WWE, of course, that's everybody's dream, but I mean, the reality is it's a huge market to try to get into if you're a man, because there's just so many people fighting for a spot there, and they've got, a ton now as it is in developmental or NXT. But I would definitely, if TNA were to reach out to me, I would be very interested, because, it's still, to me, the number 2 company. And also, I would also think, let me rephrase that. Lucha Underground, that's a company that's on the rise. I think they will be the next number 2 company, because they're a true alternative to WWE. Completely different product than, say, TNA, which is kind of like all-time WWE wrestlers. But Lucha Underground is definitely on the rise. I like what they're doing.
Yeah, I noticed that you had the Hump Day Lucha Underground post on social media, so I could guess that you were a fan anyway. And as I already mentioned, you've worked with Brian Cage in the past, and he's big there now. So if you end up in Lucha Underground, maybe you'll work another match with him.
Right, exactly. You never say never. I mean, it could be sooner than you think.
That's true. Hey, it seems to be the trend right now, because we just talked to Shane Strickland a couple of weeks ago, and he was definitely hinting that he'd be in Lucha Underground sometime soon. It wasn't a done deal or anything, but a lot of people seem to want to go there right now.
Yeah, definitely. It's hot right now. Everyone's trying to get in.
All right. Well, my final question is, since we've talked a lot about big time wrestling and how people should be following it, what can they do if they don't live in California and can't get to shows in Newark and around California? Where can they go online to see big time wrestling?
Well, you can go to the website, follow www.btwrestling.com. Sometimes matches are posted there, or links to matches on YouTube. As far as the YouTube channel, I believe it's Big Time Wrestling 1.
All right. You have your own YouTube channel as well, right?
Yes, I do. My YouTube channel is Kimo Wrestling.
All right. Well, everybody check that out. Subscribe to it. Follow you on Twitter at Kimozilla. And Kimo, I want to say I appreciate you coming on. I know it was short notice to do the interview tonight, but you've been very gracious with your time, and we really appreciate it and hope to have you back on again in the future.
Awesome. Love to. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to talk about big-time wrestling and myself a little bit.
It's our pleasure. And so take care of yourself, and we'll be in touch again sometime